Right. Hi, everyone. This is Alexander Lim, and welcome to AuthorStory. On this episode, I'll be speaking with Scott Stein, whose latest book is Leadership Hacks, Clever Shortcuts to Boost Your Impact and Results. And you can check it right now by clicking on the Amazon link in the video description below. As for Scott himself, he has a master's degree in communications and has taught communication and public speaking at Central Michigan University. He has also worked with a range of global and Australian businesses and is one of the founding board members for the charity Hands Across the Water, which is an organization that assists children who lost their families in the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. So, Scott, welcome. It's great to have you with us on Author Story.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. It's great to be here.
Cool. So, Scott, you've written quite a few books. What was your inspiration for writing leadership hacks?
Yeah, leadership hacks came about because over the last 25 years, I've been working in different capacities and different roles with lots of leaders around the globe.
Right.
And what would happen is I would meet a leader that did something amazing, and they may or may not have been aware of it. A bit of a hack, a bit of a shortcut.
Right.
And I would start sharing that model with other people. And after a while, they said, "Can you write this down? I want to be able to share it to my people." And one of my clients said, "Scott, just write the book." So we can give it to our whole company, and that's kind of what started it.
Oh, okay, so it's sort of like someone told you. It wasn't like for you. So there was no like aha moment. I should write a book. It's just like, I might as well write a book since people tell me to.
Yeah, well, it was, I've done a number of other ones. And again, I've been working with leaders one-on-one and with their teams for years.
All right.
So I've been doing, talking about this content and some of these ideas,
All right.
but just putting it all into one book, I just hadn't got around to it. And I guess now was the right time.
All right. Cool. So Scott, just so we know, how long have you been coaching business leaders?
About 25 years.
Wow. So I'm sure you have a huge database of experience to draw on.
Yeah, from quite a few places.
Right. Cool. So Scott, what are the top concerns or challenges that you see facing the leaders of today?
I think the biggest thing, and I call it the leader's dilemma, is that there's not enough time to get everything done that's on their plate. And I see that as kind of the number one thing, because when they don't have that time, what that means is they take shortcuts. They don't think about their impact or their approach on their people. And it also means that they're actually working harder. So that's, they need to actually change their approach and kind of hack their approach as well.
Okay. So let me ask you this question now, Scott. Now, because leadership, it's been around since people have been around. What are the challenges that you see facing leaders today, which leaders in the past have faced? Kind of timeless challenges all leaders have faced.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of similarities. I think one of the big ones, though, for leaders, and this has been around forever, is how do I mobilize my people? How do I get my people to take action and make things happen? And that hasn't changed. That's been around for hundreds of years, if not longer. So I think what has changed, though, is they have to do it faster than they've ever had to do it before. In the past, 10 years ago, you had plenty of time. You could sit on ideas. You could wait for your people to implement things. Today, you really can't. There's too many things happening, especially in the digital world we live in. Leaders can't afford to have their people not taking action faster.
And this is, granted, speed is one thing, but this is also somewhat risky. Sometimes, judgments don't get weighed thoroughly, and you got to move.
Yeah, and I think it's about being smarter about how they do things, which I think is the different distinction. And a lot of the ideas I talk about in the book are about how can you actually be more clever in your approach. And it's not just about speed to be reckless. It's about what's the most efficient way without skipping steps to allow you to actually make things happen in less time.
Okay. Now I'm sure there's some folks who are listening to this and they might be thinking, be efficient, work fast, don't skip steps. Is this really possible?
Yeah, it is actually.
Okay.
And I think the reason why I say it and what makes the book very different from all the other leadership books is it's practical. And one thing that I find with a lot of leaders that I work with, they are tired of the leadership theory that's been packaged up from the 1990s. The typical leader versus manager stuff that was written by some stuffy old professor who hadn't been in the real world in years. What they're looking for is practical things that they get their hands onto that they can actually quickly implement. And I think that's the thing that makes it unique, because it comes from actual leaders around the world and how they're actually implementing these strategies now to actually stay in front or help give their company a competitive advantage.
Right. So all of the hacks in this book, then these are all these have all been done before. These are approaches that have worked.
Correct, correct. So it's actually, again, a combination from the last 25 years of me working with clients across the US, in Europe, in Asia, and in Australia as well.
Okay. All right. Got that. So yeah. Okay. I mean, that's a big help to leaders. I mean, sometimes you do get overwhelmed. You need something that works and easily, easily sourced. Easily, you can find it easily.
Yeah, yeah, and again, they're tired of, leaders go through training and training programs, but geez, some of the training programs, they're talking about things that may have been relevant 15 years ago,
Right.
and there's no way they'll work today.
Right.
So I think and most leaders are switched on, and they are looking for, give me something practical that can actually help me do more with less.
All right. Okay. So, Scott, what are the hacks to leadership? Can you tell us about these?
Yeah, in the book, I actually profiled kind of three categories of hacks. One are personal hacks. So, what are things that leaders can do individually to actually help them be a little bit smarter and get more things done? There are one-on-one hacks, and this is when you're a leader and you're talking one-on-one to maybe one of your subordinates or one of your staff.
Right.
And then I also talked about team hacks, which might be the leader with their department team or even their entire organization. So over those three areas, I actually kind of went through a number of hacks across all three of those groupings.
Okay. Can you give as an example? Don't want to give too much away. I mean, do want people to check out this book, but can you give us an example of one kind of hack that, really made a difference?
Yeah, I think there's quite a few. One of them is always interesting, and I was just in New York City last night presenting to a group of entrepreneurs. And one of the things that we were looking at, and the thing that they wanted a lot on, is how do I hack my inbox in technology? Everybody is being bombarded by all of this technology. It's hard to keep up.
Right.
And,
Right.
so a lot of people are looking for, what are some hacks to allow me to get on top of this? And one of them is a hack for your inbox. So how do you actually hack your inbox? McKinsey Global Institute had a report a couple of years ago that showed that most leaders spend on average 2.6 hours per day reading and answering emails.
Wow.
Right. So that's an average of 13 hours per week of lost time.
Right.
So that definitely needs to be hacked. And there's a couple of strategies. One of them is called the 4-step email inbox hack. And this is one that came from a global HR person in the banking region. She oversees about 15 countries, right? So she's got over 10,000 staff that are underneath. And she was one of the most efficient leaders I know of. She's amazing. We all know leaders that are just on top of everything. And I actually started studying, what did she do to stay on top of her email?
Right.
And she simply did a 4-step hack. So step one is she would scan her email, right? So she'd get her inbox and she would scan. She wouldn't click on it. She wouldn't read through it. She would scan.
Right.
This was quick, followed by step two, which is delete. And she was ruthless. Like, she would get rid of anything that was not important just to eliminate the visual clutter in her inbox.
Right.
Then step three is sort the remaining emails that are there based on their level of importance. And then, of course, step four is respond. So even using a simple hack like that can actually help you get through your inbox a lot faster. The other thing that we found as well is a email send hack. Because one of the challenges, we're sending emails all the time, and we need to get people to actually read them and do something with it. A simple hack on that is, when you're sending an email to somebody, in the subject line or at the very beginning of the email, let them know what outcome you want them to take. And there's 5 outcomes from any email. So if you send any email to somebody else, there's one of 5 things you want them to do. One is an FYI. I just need you to be aware of this. The second one is I need some information from you. Can you share that? The third one is a decision needs to be made. The fourth one is I need you to take action on this. And the fifth one is we need to have a meeting because it's too complex to put all of this information down in an email.
Right.
So just by taking 10 seconds to put in the subject line or the beginning of your email what outcome, that'll give what I call context to the reader of the email, which saves them time as well as you. So if we got leaders to do that with their staff across their organization, that would actually reduce the number of emails sent, because people have to think about, why am I sending this? The other thing it would do would make it easier and quicker for other people to respond.
Right, right. And I mean, that's I mean, email is it's a big challenge nowadays, and yeah, those hacks, and if those hacks work and they save a lot of time, why not, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, most people are saying their inbox is always overflowing,
Right,
and they're
right.
looking for something to get through it faster.
Yeah,
And that's just one strategy that can be used.
right. Okay. Now, Scott, delegation, it's always been an important part of leadership. I mean, leaders can't do it all, much as they'd like to think so. And
Yeah.
but not all leaders delegate. What is it in your experience that keeps leaders from delegating to others?
Yeah, this is a big one. And I reckon this is probably the Achilles heel of most leaders. Most leaders think they're pretty good at delegating, but they're actually not. In fact, a Harvard Business Review article looked at that, and they actually found that over 50% of the companies surveyed were concerned about their employees' ability to delegate. So even companies are concerned about this. I think a lot of leaders don't delegate for one of two reasons. The first one is time. Right? Because they go, well, I could just do it myself.
Right.
Right? By the time I explain it to somebody else, I could have done it myself, and, I'll just do it myself. Or they will try to communicate it's not done the way they want it, and they're going, well, I should have just done it myself in the first place. And I think that's one of the big ones. And to me, the challenge with that is, well, that means you are doing more and more things. And again, one of the roles of a leader is to delegate and get your people to do things rather than you doing them. The second one, and the second reason why they don't delegate, is control, right? They're afraid of trusting their people, right? And to me, that's another issue. I'm going, well, if you can't trust their people, there's a bigger issue going on here, right? And part of it is they may not have trained them, right, on the skills that the staff need to have to actually complete some of these tasks that should be delegated. And really, it really comes down to most leaders haven't been trained and don't know how to delegate effectively.
And that's interesting because I always thought delegation was part of leadership training, but from what you're saying, this isn't the case.
Correct. I would say I don't know one organization that I've worked with over the last 25 years that teaches their leaders how to delegate. They say you need to delegate, but they don't give them a process or a hack.
Right. So how can leaders get unstuck from this, this reluctance? Let's call it reluctance to delegate. I mean, what can they do?
Well, I think they've got to learn how to delegate. So, and I talk about this in the book, but I'll give a quick overview on it. If you want to hack your delegation, there are 4 levels to delegation. The highest level of delegation is what most leaders do, and that's what screws them up. Level 4 is, I just want you to do this, and I'm going to check the results later. Right? And the problem is, let's say I delegated that to you, Alex, delegated a task to you. I didn't give you a lot of detail or context because I thought you knew exactly what I was talking about. You didn't ask a lot of questions to clarify it. I walk away as a leader to do the other things on my task. I come back a couple of days later and I ask to see the results, and you haven't done it yet.
Right.
And normally you're busy with everything else, or you've done it, but I look at what you've done and it's not quite to the standard that I want.
Right.
Right? And this is what most leaders do. They go from level 4, which is the highest level of delegation, to level 1. Right? And level 1 is, don't do it because I'll do it myself.
Right.
Right? It's what I call the unconscious knee-jerk reaction to leadership. Right? Because, again, and the reason why is the leader goes, well, I should have just done it myself in the first place. And, I'm not going to risk my reputation on you not getting it done. This is a massive problem because suddenly the staff are now managing me rather than me managing my staff. Right? To actually be more effective, people could go to level 2. Level 2 is with your staff member, map it together. Right? So sit down with them, grab a sheet of paper or an iPad or a tablet, doesn't matter, and map it together. So start with asking them, all right, here's a task I need you to do. What are the things or the activities that you think you're going to have to do to actually accomplish this task? So I ask them. This gives me a chance to actually understand where my staff member's level of thinking is.
Right.
We will quickly write it down on the paper. So I'll actually write it down almost like a mind map. So it might be task in the middle with some lines coming out that describe the activities. And I'm also going to coach them a little bit in here because I'm going to go, all right, maybe there's 6 different activities that need to be done to, accomplish this task.
Right.
I might ask them as well, all right, what order or sequence do you think you need to take to get these 6 activities done? What do you think you're going to do first or next and then next? And I might even coach them there. What this does is it changes the relationship. It also allows me to kind of coach and mentor people with some of the expertise of how they should be going about doing these tasks. The other thing on level 2 is we're going to put some time frames to each of these steps, depending on how complex it is. And what I'm also going to do is schedule a check-in. So I'll go, all right, great. Do you think, let's say there's 6 steps. Can you get step 1 and 2 done in the next 3 days? And let's have a check-in. So you can show me what you've come up with. And what that also does is that helps me manage and assist my staff member in managing their time. And level 3 is just a little tweak on that. Level 3 is once you actually get a person familiar with this process, you kind of shift it a little bit and you ask them to map it just on one sheet of paper. So you might go to them. I had a staff member a number of years ago. Her name was Claire. And, she became dependent on me for level 2. Right. And one day I shifted her to level 3. I said, can you do me a favor? I just got to do a conference call. Can you map this on one sheet of paper? She goes, oh, you mean like the little mind maps we do? I said, yeah. Now, show me, which is what she did. I added a couple of things because she missed a couple of steps. Right. And then she went ahead and executed it. And we still had a check-in along the way. And when you get people to level 3, that means they're starting to do a little bit more of the planning of how they're going to do these tasks. Right. As a leader, that means you now have more time, but they're also more empowered to step up to the next level. And of course, eventually you can get staff to level 4 after you've taken the time to actually train them on how to go about problem solving and kind of project managing in the process you need them to.
Okay. All right. So very interesting. And all right. So, now let me talk a little bit about leadership. I mean, we're talking about the how-tos of leadership, but I mean, let's face it, there are some people who are admired as a leader by people, and some leaders who are admired as a leader by other leaders. So what does it take to be a leader who's admired by other leaders?
Yeah, I talked about this in the book, and it's what I call the keys to hacking leadership. The leaders that are admired by others are the ones that can really get things done, but it's about how they do it and how they mobilize their people. And there's kind of 3 key ingredients that I found. The first one is mindset. They have a mindset that is open to learning and trying new things. And if you're familiar with Carol Dweck's work, and in her last book, Mindset, The New Psychology of Success, she talks about a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. Growth mindset is the belief that you can cultivate your learning and you're going to learn from your mistakes. Right. And what I'm finding is the leaders that have that growth mindset are very, very admired. The second component is about their approach. Approach is what are the steps they take and how do they actually engage their people along the way to take those steps. And they're actually quite clever. So they're not just going through the motions to go through the motions. They found a way to hack it where other people go, geez, that was very clever, right? You did it in a lot less time and a lot less hassle and a lot less steps than I did. Right. It's the second one. And the third key ingredient is about impact. And this is about the impact on the people around them. Because the leaders that are actually admired and considered great leaders, the impact they have on their staff and the people around one is one of admiration and awe because of the way they go about doing things. And that impact is massive because if they can mobilize their staff to kind of go above and beyond, right. Everybody's going to benefit.
Right. All right, cool. So, so leadership then is there like a process to achieving those 3 matters, or is it something that is native to the leader? In other words, they either got it or they don't.
No, what I found is a lot of leaders learn into leadership. Okay. Right. So I don't know, even top CEOs. So I work with top CEOs where, I'm coming in and they might have had some massive decision to make and it might have even been 6 months ago. They were in all the paper. They might have been even in the political arena as well, which some of my clients are. And I go, geez, you came up with a brilliant strategy to move through that. Tell me what your process was. Right. And a lot of them go, I just guessed. They're going,
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
completely honest. I
All
was
right.
learning on the spot. I wasn't sure what we were going to do. Our executive team weren't sure what we were going to do. But we kind of pulled together and, we took a guess. We were pretty sure it was going to work, but they never say they knew it was going to work for sure.
Mm,
Right. And I think that's the important thing. The leader that is still open to learning and knowing they're not perfect, but they're looking for new ways to do things are kind of the ones that make things happen.
mm. All right. So it's what you mentioned before. It's like growing. A leader's got to grow. I mean, he's always growing. He's constantly growing.
Yeah, well, and they're also constantly implementing things. In the book, I talk about, a coaching hack. So they take the time to coach their people. They're aware of how they communicate with their people. They hack their team meetings,
Hmm.
right? They know how to mobilize not just the individuals, but a collective group of people to make things happen. And all of those are kind of what a lot of people take years and years and years to learn over time through wisdom and experience. What I've done is I've actually kind of captured that secret formula in my book
All right.
that gives people a number of processes or hacks they can use to try and make things happen in less time and less headache.
Right. Okay. It's interesting that you mentioned meetings because That's what I was going to ask you next. Because I mean, meetings are part and parcel of everyday life. I mean, not just in the corporate world. I'm thinking stuff like PTAs, coaches meeting their teams, sports coaches meeting their sports teams, and so on. Is a team meeting just a team meeting, or are there different kinds of team meetings?
Well, there's different types of meetings. And I guess, first of all, we got to be aware of most team meetings or most meetings are just a waste of time.
All right.
Right? So
Okay.
there was a survey done on salary.com that found 47% of all staff agree the biggest waste of time at work is attending too many meetings.
Hmm.
Right? And the reason why is what I'm finding is a lot of leaders aren't aware of either A, how to run an effective meeting, or
Hmm.
B, what the different types of meetings are. So there's actually
Hmm.
4 types of team meetings. And what each of these team meetings have a different process
Hmm.
and, of course, different outcome. So the first one is a reporting or check-in meeting, and that's probably the most common meeting that leaders have. The second one is a problem-solving meeting, which is we've got some issues. We've got to get some people together in a room that are aware and have some expertise around these issues so we can fix it.
Hmm.
The third type of team meeting is a decision-making meeting, which is we might have had all the facts and we've had some time to think about it. We just now need to meet and make a decision to move forward.
All right.
And then the fourth type of meeting is a strategy development meeting, which is usually a bigger planning meeting that's looking into the future or beyond the horizon.
Hmm.
And what I find, the biggest waste of time on meetings is that the leader tries to combine these 4 different types of meetings into the same meeting. Each of these
Ah.
meetings has a different methodology or process. So they'll have a meeting that starts as a check-in meeting,
Right.
right, or a reporting checking. They try and do problem solving and make a decision all in
Hmm.
one meeting, right? People
Okay.
talk in circles, they go off track. You don't have the expertise in the room, so half of the people in the room are now on their iPhones or their laptops, and they're checking their email because they've switched out
Right. Right.
because the topic is irrelevant to them.
Hmm.
And this is a massive waste of time in team meetings. So again, if leaders would just take the time to hack their meetings and actually select the right methodology and have the right meeting, they would actually save everybody a lot of time.
So, would you recommend then that these types of meetings be held separately? Like you don't start off with a check-in meeting, you don't, and then the same meeting you don't go on to the decision making and so on and so forth.
Correct. So you might
Mm.
start with, and this is what I find quite often, you start with a check-in meeting,
Right.
and then an issue comes up, and that's where an issue comes up, and people need some help with it.
All right.
Just capture it. Finish the rest of your check-in meeting,
Mm-hmm.
and then identify what are the people we want to have in the room to do the problem-solving meeting. So we're going to finish our check-in reporting meeting,
Mm-hmm.
and then we might immediately let the people go that aren't relevant, and then we might immediately go into a separate problem-solving meeting with a different process or methodology, or we might schedule it as a separate meeting,
Ah,
right? But
right.
this way you don't waste the people's time that don't need to be in the room.
Right. Okay. And that's very efficient. I mean, those who don't need to be there, they ain't there.
Correct. And you might even be able to, you might need to grab somebody else that isn't in that meeting to come in to add some expertise as well.
Ah, right. The expertise, right? You need
Which
someone.
is,
Okay.
which is the other reason why sometimes scheduling a separate time allows the right people to be in that room so you can make the right decision.
Right. Okay. Okay. So Scott, let me move a little bit into technology because I mean, we're already in the internet era. Technology is a big thing. It's around us every day. What's the impact of technology on leadership that you see?
Yeah, I think the big thing is, you know, we should be controlling the technology, not the technology controlling us,
Hmm.
right? And that's a common thing. I love my technology, I love my devices, I love my iPhone and everything else. However, because of all the notification functions and everything else,
Right.
it can actually distract you,
Hmm.
and that's what all the research is showing. All the research is showing these technological devices
Hmm.
are distracting us from actually being efficient.
Hmm.
In fact, there's a recent Harvard Business Review study that only came out in March this year. And what they found just by having a smartphone on the desk or table next to you
Hmm.
while you're working on your laptop or desktop computer, trying to do something else,
Hmm.
just the fact that it's there
Hmm.
and it's next to you, it can actually decrease your cognitive thinking and ability
Ah,
because you want to check it, or the notifications go off and you glance at it,
right,
which
right,
stops flow, right? And that's an example of, geez, we got to control this technology. Put it in a drawer, get it out of sight.
right.
So it's not going to do that. Turn off your notifications, all
Hmm.
right? And I find this as well with a lot of leaders. A lot of leaders complain about, how do I balance my home life and my work life?
Right.
And I can't tell you how many times leaders are constantly on their smartphone while they're at home. And the rest of the
Right.
family is going, really? We want to spend time with you. We want you to be present, and your face is always in the screen,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And that really is having an impact, not just at work, but it actually in leaders' home life as well.
Right. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Got that. So really, it's about controlling stuff. Then I mean, you got to control the tech, otherwise, it goes haywire.
Correct. Correct. Control the technology. Use technology because it can be a great tool, but don't let it control you.
All right. Okay. All right. So let's say you came across someone who's just been placed in a leadership position, newly minted leader, so to speak. And you had only enough time to tell that person one thing about how to be an effective leader. What would be that one thing you'd tell that person?
Yeah, I would probably, again, based on what I see as the biggest challenge and the biggest way to actually accelerate their effectiveness, would pretty much be that delegation hack we talked about.
Hmm.
Because if they can delegate, they can actually get a lot more things done in less time. And the reason why that's so important, especially for a new leader, is a new leader usually comes in the role because they're great at doing something,
Hmm.
right? They're a subject matter expert in a particular area. They're
Right.
great at that. They know how to do that. And the challenge for them is, how do I take what's in my head and actually get my people to use it rather than me doing it all the time?
Right.
And the delegation hack and going to the right level of those four levels that we talked about earlier,
Right.
that is probably the quickest tool that a leader can use to actually accelerate their integration with their people.
Mm. Okay. 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 Got that. Delegation hack. Cool. Okay, Scott. So in the last minute or so of this interview, are there any last words of wisdom you'd like to share, maybe to inspire listeners?
Yeah, I think the thing is, it doesn't matter if you're a CEO, it doesn't matter if you're a small business owner, it doesn't matter if you want to get into leadership. The book Leadership Hacks has plenty of resources that you can use and plenty of hacks that you can use to kind of make you more effective and more efficient as a leader. So my recommendation is, pick up a copy of the book. I've had some leaders actually read it from cover to cover,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a pretty quick read. But it's also been designed as a resource, so you could just look at the delegation chapter or the communication hack,
Hmm.
or maybe the team mobilization hack,
Hmm.
and just look at that section that you could use to help you get on top of some things as well.
All right, cool. Cool, great. So, great words of wisdom right there. I mean, it's all in there in the book.
Yeah, that's right.
Cool. Okay, then. So, in closing, then, the book is Leadership Hacks Clever Shortcuts to Boost Your Impact and Results. The author is our guest, Scott Stein, and you can find his book on Amazon. So, Scott, thank you very much for being an author story. I must say it was very enlightening to speak with you today.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. I really enjoyed it.
Cool. So, everyone, please feel free to check out Leadership Hacks as well as subscribe to our channel. So, catch you all in the next Author Story Weekly interview with another fantastic author.